Hi and welcome, Erik.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
How are you today? After Christmas, before New Year's Eve?
It's good. It's good. I'm joining your podcast here from the mountains in north of Sweden. So we've had a fantastic couple of days with a lot of snow.
Amazing to hear. And then let's jump into it, Erik. First thing first, who is Erik? Please help me get the context of how you look at yourself.
Well, I'm an entrepreneur who started out at an early age, started building my business, and today I would also say that I'm a business leader, and I've always been focused on software as a service throughout my career. And I'm also a father of two girls. I'm a husband. I'm a passionate skier and a couple of other things as well. But that would be the short summary.
And if we, before we jump forward to what your company do and basically the elevator pitch and the big why, etc., about Quinyx, I want to just stay here because some of the listeners maybe don't know your story as I know it with the young. Were you 19 or were you 18 or were you even younger?
Not correct. So 18 years old when I started, and I had a part-time summer job at McDonald's towards the end of high school, where I recognized that they had a challenge in terms of how they manage their work schedules, the communication around shift bookings, and that was the starting point of the business. So me seeing that problem and then getting the opportunity actually to start a UF-företag, so a young enterprise company last year of high school.
Yeah, we will talk more about this, I assume, when we talk about the why to Quinyx, etc. But I think you are such a role model when coming up with the idea so young and still sticking with it and being like one of the basically kings, you can say kings of the SaaS of the Nordics because you have done this for so long. But I will stay there for now and let's shift the focus towards Quinyx and what your company do. The elevator pitch.
Sure, and just as we talked about the beginning of Quinyx, it's worth pointing out that we started around scheduling, shift booking as quite a let's say a quite a simple application in the beginning to today, where it's a much larger enterprise platform with a lot of capabilities. And Quinyx today, we help companies manage, optimize, and engage their workforces, and we built our cloud native platform around this and also have leading AI capabilities, great mobile apps. So the platform is quite big today, ranging from how you forecast, how you understand the metrics of how much people you should employ, how you should plan them, to the scheduling, the time recording, and then mobile apps to engage the workforce. And we've designed and built this application specifically for companies with large frontline workforces. So, environments and organizations where employee scheduling is very challenging and where you require a powerful tool to be able to run your workforce efficiently.
And if we go back then now to the big why, I love to hear the why for people and for companies. Why did you founded Quinyx? And also, what's the why now for Quinyx?
Well, just as we talked about, I saw this problem and challenge that the McDonald's organization had, and developed and designed a solution to solve that problem. And McDonald's became the first customer, and then gradually I realized that there's a big opportunity to take this product and sell it and help other organizations and employees. And just as the capabilities of the product have expanded substantially over the years, I think our purpose is also a bit bigger today than the purpose I had in the beginning. And the purpose of Quinyx today is to create a better work life for millions of people. And we do believe that if you run your workforce in an efficient way and you allow for work schedules to be flexible, so employees can decide and have more influence over the working hours, we're actually creating a much better work life. And over 80% of the global workforce are actually frontline workers, so not office
Huh.
workers. And this part of the workforce, in my view, have been underserved by technology providers because most of them have focused on developing technology for office workers. So there's a huge opportunity bringing modern, great technology to this part of the workforce. And so that's what we're doing at Quinyx. And I think, with the close to now 1.5 million employees we have on our platform, we're making quite a big impact every day.
Impressive. And thanks for sharing. And Eric, we have now arrived to a part of the interview that I call Five Quick Ones. It's a quite, yeah, the listeners love this segment. And now you need to be quick. I will throw up a word or sentence, and you need to say the first sentence that comes to your mind. Understood?
All right.
Good. Here we go. Scheduling.
Well, it's something that excites me, and it's much more complicated and more interesting than people think.
Your biggest role model.
I'd say actually Frank Slotman, the CEO of Snowflake, because I've just read his book and it's great, and it's a true role model within SaaS.
Enterprise sales.
Also, something that's much more complicated and important than I first thought when I started building Quinyx. And it's something that I think I can continue learning about for probably the rest of my career because there's a lot to be learned.
Something that's keeping you awake during the night.
Well, we do have a 8-month-old baby at home, so that's one thing. And a second thing, probably data security, hackers, always making sure that our platform is secure.
And the last one, your 2024 highlights.
I think we're going to sign a couple of plus 1 million euro ARR deals. That will be certainly, highlights for the business. We're going to be profitable on a full year basis, and we're going to continue our international expansion and see, significant growth in all our geographies.
Interesting. So, okay, from the answers you told me here, I would like to start with first Frank Slotman at Snowflake. Can you elaborate on what's so inspiring with him?
I think he has obviously built a couple of the most impressive brands and businesses within SaaS, and I think his leadership style and also what he's sharing, throughout, his book, podcast in general is principles and an approach to leadership that resonates with me. I mean, he's very hands on. I think a very strong leader, and I think he has the ability to set the right type of urgency in any organization. And that's why he's named his book Amp It Up, because he believes many organizations needs to amp it up the tempo, increase the pressure to make sure that you run faster than competition.
If we talk about your 2024, some of the highlights there, profitability.
Yeah, we've been in earlier, and then we raised capital, which we put to work, which has meant that we've had negative EBITDA for a number of years, but we became profitable and cash flow positive on a monthly basis September of this year. But next year we will be profitable for the full calendar year. So that's also like a second milestone. But we're actually already profitable, which is a big milestone.
Yeah, hats off for that during these times. And then you also mentioned more international expansion. Which are the core markets you will then target, and why?
Yeah, great question. So with Quinyx today, we are in the Nordics, Germany, Netherlands, UK, US, and Australia. That's where we have our own offices. We have our own teams. We have, however, implemented our software in more than 50 countries around the world because we've sold to a global business in the Netherlands or in the US that rolled out the software. But so going back to the regions that we focus on, it will be continued focus on Northern Europe and North America. That's where the biggest market opportunity in workforce management is. And the great thing with Quinyx is that we have established businesses in these countries that have reached
Yeah.
scale. We have great reference customers in all these countries. We have great team members. We have a localized product for these markets. So what we're going to do the next couple of years is to go deeper in these markets. So grow the existing geographies we have, And needless to say, the market opportunity is huge in the US, Germany, UK. These are big markets where we can
Yeah.
become many times bigger than we are today. And of course, our home market, the Nordics, is also growing nicely, even if it's a slightly smaller market. It's a very
Yeah.
healthy and stable foundation that we have in our business.
So basically, what I'm hearing, if I'm going to super simplify it, grow where you stands with the customers you have, and twins or lookalikes towards them in the markets close by.
Yeah, I think that's fairly correct, and you are also touching a subject when it comes to like the industry verticals we're focusing on. That is also actually remaining the same because we have so much work and so much customers to sell to within these sectors. So yes.
And if we then shift the focus towards not as happy things as profitability and expansions, etc., towards bad things or worst things, I'm now curious, Eric, to hear what's one of the worst things you have gone through as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's really tough to build a business from scratch, and anyone who's done that can probably have probably been through a couple of tough episodes, because when you are a small team, a small business, you don't have extra resources, you don't have, let's say, the margin to slip a couple of quarters in bookings. Like, everything can be life or death for a small business, so that can be quite stressful. And I think, looking back, there's definitely been a couple of episodes with Quinyx that have been stressful.
A follow on question around the topic of you as an entrepreneur is, I find this so curious. How has it been easy or very hard for you to like scale yourself with the company? Because I want to remind myself and also the listeners that you have basically grown up with Quinyx and leading Quinyx. How do you
Absolutely.
about this personal journey?
I think as a young entrepreneur, when you build your business, it's extremely important that you manage to have people that you can learn from close by, right? Either it's your board of directors, colleagues in the leadership team, mentors, advisors that can follow you and give advice, right? And I think I've been lucky to work with great investors, great board members already from start, and also have received the advice early on that we should hire senior C-level executives who built a couple of businesses before, right? So we've done that from early on, and I think that's been very important for me in order to develop and learn, in a pace so that I can still be a relevant leader for a business of Quinyx size. So I think that's very important, and I think, like, mentors, I've had that as well, which is also important, but I do think you also need people with experience that you work with, let's say, on a daily basis. Because if you're a mentor, you can get one sort of advice, but they won't
Yeah.
see you in action. They won't see
Yeah.
how you run a meeting. They won't see how you manage a customer situation. So you need also to have people that you can learn from, that see you in real life, so to speak. And I've been lucky to have that with Quinyx. We have a really strong leadership team. Many have built many, SaaS companies, software companies before, and that has really helped me develop. But you are definitely correct in a sense that Quinyx is an entirely different business to run and manage today than 10 years ago. Even 2 3 years ago, it's a different business, so it changes all the time.
And now I will actually not ask you a question right now because we will a segment, another segment is in this podcast is that we have external questions from one or two people from the SaaS community, and today we are quickly joined by a person called Jonatan Brekke at Techonomic, and this is his question. Hi Eric, if you could redo the first 2 years of Quinyx and the last 2 years of Quinyx journey, what's the main things you would do differently?
I think on the first 2 years of Quinyx, I do believe in general we should have gone international faster than we did. We should have probably it's always hard to tell what would happen, what if, but potentially entered the US market earlier than we did. I think we would have developed, faster as an organization if we would have done that. And I think, maybe that's a recommendation I have for SaaS founders from the Nordics in particular, to really try to go outside the Nordics early on, because for obvious reasons, that's where the biggest market opportunity is. And if you kind of set that type of pressure, you get the organization to face a different set of competitors early on. I think that can be beneficial for any organization. I think so. So the other part of the question is, so what would I have done differently in the last 2 years? The first thing that comes to mind is you've seen the macroeconomic slowdown earlier. We should have slowed down investment pace a bit earlier than we did. But again, it's always difficult to predict the future.
Jonathan, thank you for a great question, and Erik for the answers. We move on to a topic of your choice. And this means that I now will sip it, and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, Erik, for several minutes. The only rule here is that you need to be, a nerd within this topic and feel passion for it. The floor is yours.
Great. I think I'll actually go back to internationalization that we just talked about, because that's a topic within SaaS and software businesses that I'm very passionate about, that we've spent a lot of time at Quinyx trying to figure out what is the best way to internationalize the business, how to open new markets and geographies. And I think we've learned a lot over the years. And I know this is also a topic that many Nordic SaaS companies struggle with, and that, is a challenge for most SaaS companies, right?
Yeah.
And I think the approach we've done with Quinyx when we've entered key geographies is to actually do quite a bit of investment in terms of hiring a local team and sending over executives from the head office in Stockholm in parallel. So you get the culture over, you get application, knowledge and expertise into the market, quickly. So we've done that for most of our markets, and then, gradually, put over more and more responsibility of the team that we hire locally. And I think that approach has been successful, and something that I really recommend to try to send people over from Stockholm for at least a couple of years when setting the business up. And then I think, you can't afford, maybe as a small SaaS company, to put in place all the roles that you need in the beginning, but I would definitely recommend having at least a team of 4, 5, 6 people to get some sort of a team feeling in the geography. And then as soon as you can afford and you can, build that up to a team that covers all the essential roles that you have in your business. So for Quinyx, that would be sales, marketing, professional services, implementation. For North America, we also do first line support locally, given the time zones, and also, operations support roles, sales operations, and so forth. That kind of been the approach that we've applied successfully at Quinyx. And then in terms, you just be very open in terms of adapting your go-to-market approach to be localized, so that it works and be successful in the specific market that you expand into. And I think with Quinyx, we've certainly made quite a lot of customizations or adaptations in our go-to-market for our various markets.
This is super interesting, and I'm going to stay now on the topic of your choice, internationalization, for a while, because you said several interesting things. The first, I want to just dive a bit deeper. You said start with around 4 to 6 people at the beginning, because it's expensive with people, as you and I know. But then you said, and as soon as you can build it up to a more proper organization. How many is that number according to you? If you look at the first layer of more stable foundation in the US for Quinyx.
Well, I think when you get to a level where the local office can have a proper after work party, and it feels like it's a proper team, whatever that is, maybe 15, 20 people upwards. I think you kind of reach a critical scale where you're not as vulnerable if someone leaves, and you can kind of manage these type of events when it happens. And I think most people also find more motivation coming into an office which has, you know, people in the office. There's this type of community sense, and that's always difficult if you try to build a satellite office with one or two people. It's just going to feel a little bit lonely, right? So, so I think, great to get to that stage as soon as you can. And I think, with Quinyx now in the UK, for example, we are, I think, 70 people. Our Dutch office is also around 70, 75 people. Then it's a proper business, right? You really reach scale. You have certain revenue, of course. You have customers. You have something that will be more, let's say, self sufficient and long term. And I think for North America specifically, we try to build out the roles quicker because it's more difficult to help from Europe to the US, just given the time zones, right? So in the
Uh,
US, we did a bigger investment getting all the essential roles there as quickly as possible.
so you would say that you are a big fan of also building up a couple of few hubs with 20, 50, 70 people, then have satellites and remotes all over the world, basically.
100%. And we've chosen that approach with Quinyx, that people belong to an office where they are expected to to come in, to have that sense of community tied to a hub, right? So we think that's important, and it's been successful for us.
And regarding adapting your go-to-market approach, so it's localized. I want to stay here also for a while. Can you share what was the like biggest mistake when you early on when you didn't localize it?
I think, starting with the simple things are, translations, and that's a simple thing, just to get it done properly for all the markets that you expand into. And I think in our in the industry of workforce management, it is a little bit understanding what you are, in terms of positioning in a specific market, because that can actually be quite different in Germany versus the US. Use what they call the functionality that you have, the capabilities, how the market is used to purchase this type of software, right? So you have to understand that. I think the marketing message in itself have been very much adapted for the US market compared to most of our European markets, where just the messaging we had didn't resonate with American prospects, as much as it did in Europe. So we've adapted that to a different type of message. I think the pain points, the benefits that customers are looking for can be dramatically different between markets. And I think, finally, also the type of lead generation that you do, the mix between investment into, BDRs, online events, the marketing mix tend to look also quite differently depending on geography.
I think we have gotten a quite good foothold now of, yeah, for a SaaS leader listening to this, talking about your topic of choice, internationalization. At least I feel that I have got a much better understanding. It's my podcast, so I decide. So we move on to almost a similar topics because you have already touched base there. Go to market. And now I don't want to be broad here. I want to be super narrow, Eric. If you need to mention one thing, the one thing that's the most important connected to go to market strategy according to you, what's that?
Selecting your ideal customer profile carefully and correctly. I think the focus on which customers is the most important piece of your strategy, especially in enterprise software, because you develop with your customers, you adapt yourself to your customers. So picking the right ones is very important.
Super interesting, very important. And now you are gonna help me create a mini handbook, Eric's mini handbook of, yeah, like 3 step or 5 step of where do we start. If you tell me, okay, Joseph, we are gonna select your ICP very carefully, your 3 or 5 step handbook now, lead me through the journey.
Well, the key the key parameters to consider is, what industry are you selling to? What size of customer are you selling to? In which geographies? And what's the persona in the customer's organization that you're trying to sell to? I think if you can map these, things out and have a discussion in your leadership team around, most likely you're not going to be fully aligned in the leadership team what that map should look like, and then that's just something that constantly needs to be debated. And but it's an important discussion to have and try to narrow down what you focus on. And then I think also number two, have a discussion on how should we manage a lead coming in that is outside our ICP, right? Because for many organizations, the right thing is not to do nothing outside your ICP, because sometimes you need to kind of grow, have, let's say, opportunity to grow into new verticals and new markets as well. But that approach and the willingness of, what risk to take, how it all connects to your product roadmap, product development, is something that is super important to align in the leadership team.
And this last part, how should a lead outside the ICP be managed? I'm wondering, how do you manage a lead with outside your ICP?
So we have a qualification process for the sales organization, where because the risk, if you have something that's outside ICP, let's say it's a vertical you haven't done before, the
Yeah,
risk is of course that the customer will ask for features that you don't have. The risk
yeah,
is that you're going to spend a lot of time in the sales process, and in the end you're not going to win because you don't have the references, you don't have the partners, etc., etc. So
yeah.
you need a qualification process that helps the sales organization to qualify early. Is this something we should do or not, right? And sometimes, that the qualification will say, yeah, this is actually an opportunity where we should take the risk. We should take the risk to invest in the sales process, and we're willing to take the risk to implement this customer because we think, for various reasons, that it's an interesting customer for us to engage with. And looking back with Quinyx, that is of course how the expansion of our ideal customer profile have worked. That is how we did our first deals in healthcare, in warehousing, is to kind of take these steps outside. You see what worked. Maybe you commit a little bit of your R&D resources to develop features for this type of customer, and then you can hopefully see that strategy paying off in the long term. But having some type of process on what to do when it happens probably makes sense.
Thank you. Okay, so leaving go to market as general and talking about marketing, what's the main thing or channel that's basically generating the most leads for you right now?
I don't have the exact data for right now, but I can tell you a couple
More
of things
general
that's
than like, yeah.
been successful for us over the years. And and this comment is perhaps mostly to enterprise, relevant for enterprise software companies when you sell
Yeah,
to a bit larger accounts. Because for us, approaching the bigger accounts and prospects, actually the partnership with analyst firms have been very important. So you make sure that you have a partnership with the analyst firms, for example, Gartner, Forrester, and there's others too, and that they spend time, they include you in the report, and then you remarket the report. So you, in partnership with the analyst, you actually do marketing around that specific report. And that has been, I think, very successful for us, because you can leverage the brand name a little bit of the analyst firm. That gives them credibility to your campaign, because you don't have that credibility when you enter a new market and no one knows your brand name. So that has been quite successful for us.
very interesting. And then talking some outreach then. I with Vaam are building a sales tool and outreach tool, so I'm super curious to collect data points within this field. And now I don't, Eric, want to hear about your outreach process. I basically want to understand the best way, your preferred way of being contacted in a modern buyer's journey for B2B. How do you like to get approached?
Well, great question. I, just thinking back on, let's say cold emails being received, I'd always, I think, what gets my attention, if it's personalized, it talks to a challenge that is relevant for us right now, and always when our competition or relevant peers are mentioned, like, yeah, hey, we're doing this solution for a couple of companies that I look up to. That always gets my attention in that sense.
And you said email. Would email or LinkedIn, like, obviously I understand that it's async and not sync then, but is it email or LinkedIn or something else that gets your attention the best?
Yeah, but I think LinkedIn, and maybe other executives have the same experience. I think LinkedIn is getting a bit difficult, because if I get so many messages on LinkedIn that I don't read any of them, because it's just too much, right? It's just
Yeah.
too crowded, too much noise, and so with the increased AI and automation, I do expect, like, all these messages will just increase, and that will be interesting to see if it's even going to be a channel where you can reach a C level, because it's just going to be too much messages. So yeah.
Good. Okay, and this means that we are entering the roundup now. So we only have a few questions left. And the first thing here is book tips. What's your favorite book or books right now connected to, yeah, business approach?
That's my favorite business book all time would be The Hard Thing About Hard Things with Ben Horowitz. I think that's a great one. That's a must read for any entrepreneur.
This is the second time I hear this recommendation in
I
just
can
like
imagine, yeah.
one month or 1.5 months. So if you haven't read this book, you listeners, read it now, ASAP. Okay, second last question. Can you share one of your favorite life mottos?
Well, I'll actually go with a recent one. I just listened to an interview with Jeff Bezos on the Lex Friedman podcast, which was great, by the way. And Jeff, said one of his mottos was stubborn on vision but flexible on the details. And I really liked that statement. I think it makes a lot of sense, and something to keep in mind for any business leader.
Yeah, I love that quote too. Thank you for sharing. Amazing. Stubborn on vision, but flexible on details. And the very last question, then, Eric. And now you are talking to yourself, the younger self. Think 10 years back. If you would give yourself the top 1 to 3 things to think of that you now know that you didn't know, what would you tell yourself?
So I would say act quicker, more decisively, with more self-confidence. Learn how to sort out noise, and what I mean with that is learn how to focus on the problems and the challenges that really matters, and learn how to sort out everything else, because time is short when you run a fast growth business, and you have to learn very quickly to try to allocate your time where it matters.
So, from my understanding, I don't know if I'm super down now, but this was 2 things, right? Or am I missing something?
You're probably right,
Act
it was
quick,
two.
act quicker, more decisive, things around that, and then learn how to sort out
And
noise.
maybe a third one then. So as goes back to the other theme we discussed, it's just have the courage to go international early on.
I like this last part because it's with the red thread towards this episode, and this episode will most likely be like how to internationalize your company or something like that. Yeah, I love that you thrown in this last part. Yeah.
Excellent.
A- And with these words, I'm now shifting the focus towards you who has been listening. 2 quick ones. Number one, don't be selfish. If you got value here from Eric, tell a friend or a colleague to listen to Eric in B2B SaaS CEOs. And thing number two, press the subscription button. We have great guests coming here every week. And Eric, a huge thank you for putting aside around 30 minutes together with me to help the SaaS community to keep on learning.
Well, thank you, Joseph. Thanks for being a part of your podcast, and it was a great discussion today. Thank you.